I have made some upgrades to this outdoor mealworm farm colony, so I'm going to run you through those today. So we're starting to head into some cooler months. We're in sort of mid autumn now, and we've just sort of had that change from those 30 degrees Celsius days into the low 20s. So I decided to harvest the tote. Two reasons. One was I noticed there were other bugs in the tote because I didn't have the screen on at the time, and because of that I had a lot of pantry moth that were in there that had really messed up the substrate, and there were also a lot of dead beetles. So I really thought it's a good time to assess the system and make some adjustments and hopefully some improvements, obviously, to the whole system. The other reason was to install a heat mat to try to keep them warm in the winter time. So the first thing I wanted to sort of figure out was why so many beetles died, and I think the reality was it was just too hot. We had 40 degrees Celsius days, sometimes a few in a row over summer. It was a hot, dry summer. In order to try to insulate, I put a heap of burlap. It was probably about a foot thick in places. It was sort of just put loosely. It may have actually reduced the amount of airflow through the system, as well as maybe trap a lot of the heat that was generated in the bin. I think that's why they died. It was important just to clear all of that out. So I harvested the whole material, which actually took me all day. So I'm just cleaning out everything that's been inside the bin. You can see evidence of the moths. All those black dots are dead beetles. We do have frass. Here we are. But it's frass mixed with the substrate. But that's okay. We can use the sifter to separate that. Using this white mesh here is that we'll end up with less pantry moth. My hope is as I install these, I'm going to see less pantry moth over time with a better installation. Here's some beetles here. Okay, there's some movement there. So it looks like that's where our mealworms are. It looks like the moths love to congregate underneath these egg cartons where the carrots sit. So maybe they're drawn to the moisture and then they grow underneath. So again, hopefully we can manage that a bit better. Good news is chickens are going to get a good feed of the beetles, the dead beetles at least. So nothing will go to waste. We'll harvest the frass, recycle the substrate, but I think what I'll do is freeze the substrate first, try and kill any moth eggs, and there are other little bugs in here as well, so we'll deal with that as we go. But the idea today, what I'm interested in, is seeing how many beetles we have, how many mealworms we have. But I'd say that for the most part it's been a success. I've learned some things, I've made some mistakes that I can learn from, and we'll make a better system going into the winter. Usually the top one has old carrot and bits and pieces. I'll chuck that in the compost, and then these two trays have the beetles, mealworms, pupa, and so on. And then I'm putting that into this tray for latest sorting, and then the bottom three is all bran in its various sizes that I sift to try and get as much frass out of it as I can. Once I've sifted it through, I just get rid of these old carrots and there's bits of rubbish. Here I just try and pick up a bit of this stuff. In here are dead beetles, live beetles, and pupa, and a few mealworms. So what I do, grab another container. So this is the substrate. Now this is going to have a little bit of frass in it, so I'll sift that through. There's going to be other insects in here. So there's one there. You can see one in there, hopefully, and there's a bunch in there, so yeah, it's all going to go as a treat to the chickens, protect our colony going forward. We're getting a bit of frass at the bottom here. Painstaking part of the process. So I go through this and I separate the pupa from the alive beetles. I'll put them in a little container, and I'll put all the dead beetles and dead mealworms I'll put aside, and that'll all go to the chickens. Anyway, so that's what it looks like. Collecting the mealworms. Beetles have been putting in this darker container, all the pupa. So here's the sifted brand. Wings just gets right in there. She's a mealworm queen. She loves them. Time to give the chickens a massive treat. That's one way of getting rid of insect pests. 2 buckets of the old brand from the tote. It was good enough to store away. I'll refreeze it and reuse that. The rest of it went to the chickens. One of the downsides of a colony style farm where they're all in together is, and I guess of this size, is while you have minimal interruptions, just have to feed it basically and not, move bins around and separate things and all that, just leave them be. When it comes time to harvest, it can take a while. It took a while also because not all of the substrate had been eaten, so I had to separate all of that, whereas if it was like mostly frass, it would have sifted really quickly. So I think I got about maybe 10 kilos of frass out of the tote. This is after 6 or 7 months, which isn't a lot. I see it as bonus frass because this is like an experiment, but I can get that from a month from the inside worm farm. So, but anyway, it was still 10 kilos, which is good. And there were a handful of mealworms, beetles, and pupa still in the bin. And just cleaned the whole bin out and started again. And so one thing I've done is I've separated the bin into 2 sections. Okay, I've had the heat mat running for the last 12-15 hours, so just testing it out. I've set it at 21 degrees and it seems to fluctuate between 20 and 22, but here seems to sit on 25 to 26. So even if it's in between those two, I think we're pretty good. Let's open it up and have a look. So what I do is I put the mat in the middle of the tote, and the idea is to obviously just work one half of the bin and instead of the entire bin. One of the reasons is this heat mat actually, I got 2 of them. They can connect up via this cord here, so I can actually have 2 on the go. And maybe if things start going well, maybe I can build up the second side. I'm getting a lot of beetles in my inside bin, and mealworms, so it might be a case of I've got excess, so I can start this side and build that up at some point in the near future. The layers are the heat mat, 2 layers of burlap, then the egg cartons has the carrots and the mealworms and beetles in them, and then the substrate under that. So let's open up the layers. Just turn it off. It's just one piece folded in half. It's good to see, the beetles moving around. They're obviously warm because they're moving around a good deal. Open that up. The beetles, they seem pretty happy. I thought maybe the heat would dehydrate the carrot really quickly, but it's looking fine actually. And I can see a lot of pupae in there. So, and here's all the pupae that I collected when I harvested everything from the bin. I set them up higher on bricks just to try to keep them separate from the mealworms as much as possible. But so far, I think going into winter, I think this mat's going to do a great job at keeping them warm and therefore productive, growing at a good rate. A few moths, pantry moths, just collected in the trap, so it's doing its job. So this is the thermostat for the heat mat. It's very straightforward. So we'll just turn it on. Currently at 18 degrees Celsius. You can switch it between Fahrenheit and Celsius there, and when you press either the plus or the minus, it'll tell you what it's set to, and it's currently 18, which is cold, just because I've got the bin open at the moment. And I've put the sensor inside the egg carton just so that we're getting a good reading of what it is like for the mealworms and beetles that will be inside the egg cartons. Here's a separate temperature gauge, so it tests temperature as well as humidity. And the good thing about this is it shows you the highest and lowest temperatures and humidity by just pressing this button here, so that it goes to the max. So the max temperature 29.9, max humidity 66, and the lowest. So what I'm liking so far is the humidity, for the most part, is right where you need it, sort of in that sort of 50 to 60. And I put the sensor on the outside, just on top of the substrate here on the outside, just to get a sense of what the temperature is like outside of the egg carton versus inside. Drape that over. I'll put this back. I'll just go through this. The other thing I do is just play with the opening. So I just put some bricks here to give the lid a little lift so that airflow can come through. Sometimes, like in summer, I think I had a whole thing open at one point. This is a little bit finicky to deal with, but it's really needed. It does add extra time putting this on, and it's not, it's not completely sealed, obviously. So I think still beetles and insects and moths can still get in, but I think it's going to definitely massively improve the system. So they're the upgrades that I've done to the tote. I think it's going to do really well over winter. I think the challenge is going to be how to keep it cooler in summertime. In summer, one of the plans I do have is potentially to take this lid completely off, obviously leaving the screen on, and we've got some misters here that I can turn on, maybe put it on a timer, and intermittently in the hot days have it spraying in this room with this fan blowing down, and that might just actually keep the tote cooler, but I'll play with that more in the summertime. If it's looking good and healthy, I'll just keep adding substrate and just building it up until maybe we get into the spring, and then I'll harvest it. Hoping for more frass at the end of the winter, and hoping for a lot more beetles, larvae and mealworms. The beetles not dying off as much, and just a healthier farm. So at the moment, the frass that we're getting from the inside bins, we're selling that. And so I'm sort of envisioning that the frass we'll get from this outdoor farm will be for our homestead, and so that's the way I'm thinking about it at the moment. Anyway, that's the update for the colony, and let's see how it goes over the coming months to 6 months. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on another video.